I didn't mean to ask the question. That's the part one repeat to myself whenever the night air tastes like ionized metal and old stars, whenever I hear the low chime that signals a royal vessel slipping into orbit above a forgotten human outpost. I didn't mean to ask it, but the words had been pressing against my teeth for weeks, maybe years, waiting for a crack in my discipline. The crack came in the hall of quiet accord, beneath a ceiling grown from living crystal, where the lights dimmed themselves whenever a lie entered the room. I was there as a translator, nothing more. A human voice among 100 alien dialects, hired because I spoke Kethic trade, and because I knew when to keep my eyes down.
That was the job.
That was survival. The princess sat on a floating dais of pale stone, her posture relaxed in a way that radiated absolute authority. Her people called her the Lara, no honorifics allowed in direct address, no gestures permitted except a shallow bow. She wore no crown. Ketheri royalty didn't need symbols. Their biology did the work for them. The faint glow along her cheekbones pulsed with her heartbeat, a living reminder that she was not just important, she was dangerous. The hall was silent. Delegates from 7 systems waited for her ruling on a trade dispute that had already sparked 3 border skirmishes. I was meant to translate the final words into human standard and transmit them to Earth's envoy. Instead, I asked a forbidden question. "You're high, the Lara." I corrected myself quickly. "May I ask why?" The glow along her cheekbones flickered. 100 heads turned toward me. The living crystal ceiling dimmed a shade, as if bracing for impact.
Why?
The one question no one asked the Ketheri, because they ruled by inherited foresight. They didn't explain. They decided. I felt the mistake land in my gut, like a dropped engine core. I rushed on, voice too loud in the silence. Why choose this path when the other accords would? The hall darkened another shade. I stopped talking. For a long moment, the Lara regarded me. Her eyes were an impossible violet, not reflective like human eyes, but deep, absorbing, as though they pulled meaning inward instead of casting it out. I waited for the guards, for the energy lances, for the clean, efficient end reserved for humans who forgot their place. Instead, she smiled. It wasn't a human smile. It didn't bare teeth. It softened her face in a way that made the glow along her skin warm rather than sharp. "Send the others away," she said, in flawless trade. The ceiling brightened. The delegates hesitated, then filed out, murmuring. Guards sealed the doors with a sound like stone exhaling. My heart tried to claw its way out of my chest. "You asked a forbidden question," the Lara said, once we were alone. "Do you know why it is forbidden?" I swallowed. "Because answers change things. Because answers invite participation," she corrected gently. "And participation is contagious." I didn't know what to say. So, I told the truth. "I asked because I don't understand you," I said. "And because you noticed." Her smile widened, just a fraction. "Yes," she said. "I noticed." She rose from the dais, the stone lowering itself until she stood level with me. Up close, I could feel a faint hum in the air around her, like the background radiation of a star. The glow beneath her skin responded to my proximity, brightening in curious pulses. "You are human," she said. "Your species is young, fragile, and dangerously inventive. You ask why the way my people ask when." She stepped closer. "And you are afraid," she added. "But you asked anyway." I nodded, because lying in the hall of quiet accord was physically painful. The crystal ceiling punished falsehoods with migraines that felt like needles behind the eyes. The Lara studied me for another long moment. Then she turned away, walking toward the sealed doors. "You will return tomorrow," she said. "At dawn cycle. Alone." My breath caught. Am I under arrest? She glanced back over her shoulder. If you were, she said, you would not be breathing. Fair point. What happens tomorrow?
I asked.
She placed her palm against the door. The seals loosened, just enough to let sound leak through, the distant murmur of the station waking up. You asked a forbidden question, she said again. Tomorrow I will answer it. Then she paused, and her eyes met mine. Then, she added softly, let's begin. I didn't sleep. Humans weren't meant to stay awake for 30 hours straight, but adrenaline doesn't care about biology. I paced my quarters, replaying every word, every shift of her expression, every possible interpretation. Had I just been recruited? Tested? Marked for execution with a dramatic flourish? At dawn cycle, I stood outside the private wing reserved for Cathari royalty, hands trembling despite my best efforts. The doors opened before I could knock. Inside, the space was nothing like the austere halls of governance. It was open, organic, walls grown rather than built, curving around pools of softly glowing water. Bioluminescent plants traced gentle arcs overhead, their light responding to motion. The Lara waited near the center, dressed more simply now, the glow along her skin muted to a calm, steady rhythm. You came, she said. You told me to, I replied. Her eyes sparkled. Good. Then we are aligned. She gestured, and the room shifted. The walls became transparent, revealing a view of space, stars sliding past as the station adjusted its orbit. A massive structure loomed below us, a Cathari archive spire, spiraling outward like a frozen wave. This is where we keep our answers, the Lara said. Not the official ones. The dangerous ones. I stared. Why show me this? Because you asked why I chose the path I did, she said. And because the answer is not simple. She moved closer to the transparent wall, placing her hand against it. Images bloomed across the surface. Star systems, timelines, branching possibilities. I recognized some, human colonies thriving, others burning. My people see probabilities, she said, not certainties. We choose paths that minimize extinction events. Yours is statistically noisy. Sorry, I muttered. She laughed, a soft, melodic sound that sent a strange warmth through my chest. Your unpredictability is your strength, she said. And your weakness. The images shifted, focusing on a narrow band of futures where humans and Cathari coexisted. In many, the galaxy was stable. In others, it fractured. In every stable future, the Lara continued, a human asks a forbidden question. I turned to her. You're saying this was inevitable? I am saying, she replied, that I recognized the moment when possibility narrowed around you. My throat went dry. Me? Yes, she said simply. Not because you're special, but because you are willing. Willing to do what? To begin, she said again. She explained then, not all at once, but carefully, patiently. The Cathari were nearing a transition point in their evolution, one that would amplify their foresight, but diminish their adaptability. Humans, in contrast, were chaos engines, limited foresight, boundless adaptability. Alone, each species faced a future of slow decline or sudden collapse. Together, there was a third path. But alliances already exist, I said. Trade, research, surface agreements, she interrupted. What I propose is deeper. Shared governance. Shared uncertainty. I laughed, a little hysterically. You're talking about rewriting the power structure of the galaxy. Yes, she said. And you are talking about why. I fell silent. You asked why I chose a path that angered my rivals, she said. Why I risked war for compromise. The answer is that I am afraid. The crystal ceiling, now a distant memory, would have dimmed at that admission. Here, there was only the steady light of the archive. I have seen the futures where I do nothing, the Lara said. They are empty. Her glow dimmed, just a fraction. And I have seen the futures where I trust, she added. They aren't alive. I took a deep breath. So, where do I come in? She met my gaze. You translate, she said. Not just language. Intention. You help my people understand yours, and yours understand mine. You ask the questions we cannot. That sounds like a death sentence, I said. Eventually, she agreed. Most meaningful roles are. Despite myself, I smiled. When does this begin? I asked. Her eyes softened. It already has, she said. The weeks that followed blurred into a rhythm I'd never known. Mornings in the archive, afternoons in council chambers, nights spent debating philosophy with a being who could see 10 moves ahead and still chose to ask my opinion. There were setbacks, assassination attempts, political backlash. More than once, I woke to find Ketheri guards stationed outside my quarters, their presence both reassuring and terrifying. Through it all, the Lara remained present. Not distant, not untouchable. She listened. She argued. She changed her mind. One evening, as we stood watching a newly formed joint station take shape in orbit, a symbol broadcast across the galaxy, she turned to me. You have not asked another forbidden question, she observed. I'm saving them, I said. In case of emergency. She smiled. Wise. I hesitated, then spoke. What happens when this ends? Her glow pulsed thoughtfully. It doesn't, she said. It becomes something else. I nodded, accepting the non-answer for what it was. Do you regret it? I asked. Answering me that first day? She considered, then shook her head. No. Do you regret asking? I thought of my old life, anonymous, safe, small. I thought of the stars now familiar to me, of the fragile, stubborn hope taking root across species. No, I said. Not for a second. She extended her hand, palm up. Not a command, an invitation. Then let us continue, she said. I took her hand, and somewhere, far beyond the walls of any hall, the galaxy adjusted its course, not because it was foretold, but because someone had dared to ask why, and someone else had dared to answer. The galaxy did not change all at once. That was the first lesson the Lara taught me after I took her hand. Revolutions, she said, were a myth told by those who survived them. Real change was quieter, slower. It crept into language, into habits, into the assumptions people stopped questioning because new ones felt more natural. Still, some moments echoed louder than others. The first public announcement of the Concord Initiative, our name for the shared governance experiment, sent shockwaves through known space. Ketheri high houses denounced it as dilution of destiny. Several human factions accused me personally of manipulation, collaboration, or outright betrayal. There were threats, calls for my recall, a bounty posted by a mercantile coalition that believed instability was bad for quarterly projections. The Lara read all of it without visible reaction. You are calmer than I am, I told her once, after another sleepless night scrolling through hostile transmissions. I have already lived through these arguments, she replied, in futures that no longer exist. That should have comforted me. It didn't. Because foresight or not, we were now living in the one timeline where people could still choose to pull the trigger. The attempt came during the summit of minor powers, held on neutral ground, a ring station orbiting a dead star. The Lara insisted on attending in person, despite every security model screaming risk. They will not trust in absence, she said. And trust is already scarce. I stood at her side as translator and liaison. My role expanded far beyond what my contract, or my former life, had ever imagined. The chamber was vast, circular, designed so no delegation sat above another. Symbolism mattered. So did explosives. I felt it before anyone else noticed. The subtle wrongness in the air, the way sound flattened, as if space itself were holding its breath. Thalara's glow spiked sharply, her hand tightening around mine. "Down," she said, just as the floor ruptured. The blast threw us apart. Alarm screamed. Gravity faltered. I hit a wall hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs, vision blurring as smoke and debris filled the chamber. Through the chaos, I saw the Lara kneeling, one arm braced against the fractured floor, her glow flaring like a star gone nova. A Cathari assassin, one of her own, rose from the smoke, weapon charged, eyes cold with certainty. "This future ends now," he declared. I didn't think. I moved. Human reflexes aren't impressive on a galactic scale. We're slower, weaker, softer than most species who venture into the wider stars. But we're very good at improvisation. I slammed into him sideways, knocking the weapon's aim just enough. The energy discharge carved a molten scar across the ceiling instead of through Thalara's chest. The backlash sent the assassin sprawling. Guards swarmed seconds later. It was over almost as soon as it began. I stayed on my feet only because the Lara was holding me up. Her glow dimmed, pulsing erratically. "You are injured," I said, panic cutting through the ringing in my ears. "No," she replied. "But you are." Only then did I feel the pain, white hot, blooming along my side where shrapnel had torn through fabric and flesh. Medical teams rushed in. As they pulled me onto a stretcher, the Lara knelt beside me, ignoring protocol, ignoring cameras, ignoring the stunned silence of 100 watching delegates. "You chose without calculating," she said quietly. I forced a grin. Bad habit. Her eyes searched my face, something raw and unguarded flickering beneath the surface. "You altered the probability field," she said. "Significantly." "Is that good?" "Yes," she said. "And terrifying." I woke hours later in a recovery suite, pain dulled but not gone. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. The second was the Lara sitting beside the bed, her glow steady, subdued. "You should be resting," I croaked. She tilted her head. "So should you." "What happened?" "The assassin spoke before he was taken," she said. Enough to confirm what I suspected. There are those among my people who believe certainty is worth any cost. "And now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "they have seen that the future can bleed." News spread fast. Faster than any official narrative could control. Footage of the attack, and of me throwing myself into it, looped across networks. Commentators argued whether it was bravery or recklessness. Analysts debated whether the Concord Initiative was now doomed or irrevocably legitimized. The truth, as usual, was messier. Support surged in unexpected places. Minor species who had lived under the shadow of larger powers saw possibility where before there had been inevitability. Human colonies, long used to being reactive rather than influential, found their voice amplified. Opposition hardened too. There were more threats, more plots, more sleepless nights. But there was also momentum. Months passed. The Concord Council convened for the first time, representatives seated not by power or prediction, but by willingness to engage. I watched from the central dais as the Lara opened the session, her voice calm, her presence unmistakable. "We begin without certainty," she said. "That is the point." Later, alone on a balcony overlooking the slow spin of the station, she joined me. "You could leave," she said. "No one would fault you." Your species would welcome you home as a hero. I thought about Earth, about blue skies filtered through pollution, about a life that suddenly felt very far away. And you? I asked. I cannot, she said. Nor would I. I met her gaze. Then neither will I. Her glow warmed, a subtle shift I'd come to recognize as relief. Do you know, she said, why your question mattered? Because it broke a rule, I said. No, she replied. Because it implied an answer might exist. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel that familiar hum, no longer intimidating, but grounding. My people believed the future was something to be endured, she continued. You treated it as something to be discussed. I smiled. We're annoying like that. Yes, she said. And invaluable. Years later, human years, measured by bodies that aged and tired, I stood again beneath a crystal ceiling, though this one belonged to no single species. The hall of shared accord glowed softly as delegates argued, laughed, compromised, and occasionally shouted. It wasn't perfect. It was alive. The Lara stood beside me, unchanged in ways that still startled me, changed in others that only I seemed to notice. She leaned in, voice low. They are asking why again, she said. I listened, catching the word ripple through the chamber. Unremarkable now, unforbidden. Good, I said. That means it's working. She looked at me, that familiar smile curving her lips. You began this, she said. I shook my head. No. I just asked a question. She extended her hand, palm up, the same invitation she'd offered years ago. Then, she said softly, let us continue. I took her hand, and somewhere beyond the walls, beyond the stars we could name, the future remained uncertain, dangerous, fragile, unfinished. For the first time in recorded history, that uncertainty belonged to everyone. And that, it turned out, was exactly what the galaxy needed.